The final session today is on animal welfare. We've chosen to address the question, how much responsibility should tourism take for animal welfare? The first presentation is going to come from Daniel Turner of Born Free. Then we're going to hear from Simon Pickup of ABTA about the codes of practice that they've been working on. Then we're going to hear from Travis Burke, who's got a very nice Texan accent, and we'll be talking from the point of view of an attraction. And then Miriam is going to be the final presenter, talking about Virgin Holidays' position on these things. I've asked each speaker to talk for not more than 7 or 8 minutes, so there's plenty of time for discussion at the end. So Daniel, over to you. Okay, just press
space. Thank you, Harold. Saving the best topic to last, which is great. So, animals in tourism. When people say those 3 words, most people think about viewing wild animals in the wild. And of course, that certainly has its place in tourism. But the reality is very different. There are thousands of species, both wild and domestic animals, that are used in tourism experiences throughout the world. And as you can see from the list here, these are from excursions of tour operators working throughout the world in different destinations. And as you can see, the variety is staggering, involving wild animals in captivity as well as wild animals in the wild and domestic animals too. Even the species themselves can vary, very different and diverse activities involving just one species. So for an elephant, you can view elephants in the wild, you can ride elephants, you can visit them in orphanages or sanctuaries, you can wash an elephant, you can see them in religious displays and processions, you can see them performing abnormal behaviors, and again, you can see them in a zoo. You can shoot an elephant for trophy hunting. Or you can buy one of their products. And I think the important thing to recognize is that those activities can teach you something about the elephant, perhaps, but if done badly, it can have a major impact on both the welfare and survival of the species. But the elephant is still the elephant, and irrespective of its use or the country that it's used in, it will have its inherent needs. And provision of those inherent needs will ensure its welfare. Failure to provide those needs will result in adverse effects and, unfortunately, early mortality. So what is welfare? Well, the European Treaty in the European Union recognizes all animals as sentient beings. It recognizes that they can all experience pain, suffering, and distress. And generally speaking, it's about the welfare and the health of the animal. From the travel industry's perspective, as in ABTA's Global Welfare Guidance for Animals in Tourism, good welfare is when an animal is healthy, comfortable, well-nourished, safe, able to express innate behavior, and is not suffering from unpleasant states such as pain, fear, and distress. Having written or drafted those guidance documents, that statement is based on international law, and animal welfare is internationally recognized, understood, and required by international communities. And the travel industry should not be alone in that. As far as Born Free's work, we are an international wildlife charity. Primarily, we believe that wild animals should not be kept in captivity. But we have to be realistic. We have to recognise that you can't close these places overnight. You can't release captive wild animals into the wild because many would not survive. So we must seek a realistic approach, but that realistic approach must be progressive. And this is why we're working with certain members of the travel industry, many of which you see on that slide. And we produce guidance documents, advice, customised tools, and most recently the Global Welfare Guidance for Animals in Tourism, which Simon will come on to explain. But furthermore, we work with other entities, such as the World Travel Market, to create the new Animal Welfare Initiative Award, which will be awarded tomorrow for the first time. Why? Because it's important to encourage the industry to recognise animal welfare as important and to encourage their activities to ensure that they are not detrimental to the welfare of animals. As a charity, we represent the public. We receive thousands of reports of concern from those members of the public about individual animals being exploited across the world in tourism activities. These pictures are just some of those that we receive from those members of the public who are very concerned, and they want Born Free to address those concerns and alleviate the suffering. And we do our best, but we can't do it alone. Where tourism exists in destinations, we are working together, and with ABTA and other members on this panel, we are working to see better lives for animals. But it has to be progressive, we have to be realistic, and unfortunately, we can't be idealistic. So, does tourism have a responsibility? Are members of the public concerned about animal welfare? Can we make a difference through tourism? Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Daniel. Simon. Simon Pickup from ABTA, who's going to talk about the guidelines that they've produced recently. Use the space bar, it's the easiest way.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Harold. Thanks, Daniel, and good afternoon, everyone. As I was preparing for the session today, I was thinking a lot about this question: how much responsibility should tourism take for animal welfare? And the answer to that, from ABTA's perspective, is a lot. And that stems because from the fact that nowadays the animal attractions industry and tourism industries are fundamentally interconnected. In 2013, we conducted some research which showed that 1 in 4 UK consumers had an animal experience as part of or during the course of their holiday. And as responsible business practice necessitates that we look at standards within our supply chains, it's fundamentally important that the industry acts upon its responsibility by working with the supply chain in this area. So in line with that, what I wanted to do over the next 7 minutes or so is just elaborate a little bit further on where that responsibility comes from, and then talk you through the journey we've been on with through the last couple of years to present a practical approach to delivering against that responsibility. But first, if I may, just a short recap on who ABTA is. So we are the largest travel association operating in the UK, and we have a very large and diverse membership of tour operators and travel agents, around 750 tour operators and 5,000 travel agencies. And our mission is to achieve confidence at the heart of travel. And we believe that all those segments in the image on the left-hand side of the screen are the vital ingredients of that vision of confidence. And when we talk about confidence, we mean confidence for customers to book, confidence for companies to trade and to invest, and confidence that the industry is building a sustainable future. So looking now at this interconnectedness between the animal attractions and the tourism industries, when we sought to break that down, we found that really animals become part of the tourism offer in one of three main areas, many of which Daniel's just captured. But first of all, animals can form the product itself, such as in safari or watching holidays. Increasingly, though, we're seeing a tendency within the volunteer tourism sector for voluntourists to want to work on a biodiversity or a conservation project, or a project where there's hands-on contact with animals. Secondly, animals can form part of the customer experience in terms of the activities they get up to in the destination through excursion portfolios. So here we're talking about swim with attractions, ride on attractions, visits to zoos and gardens. And when we've looked at this across the ABTA membership, we found that in some circumstances, animal-related excursions can form up to 60% of the total excursion product portfolio. So it's a very significant part of where the two industries come together. And then finally, animals can incidentally form part of the tourism offer, and that can be a good or a bad thing. But just to focus on some of the issues we've seen here, we have issues with stray animals in and around tourism destinations, or issues where tourists have witnessed endemic neglect or endemic abuse whilst on their holiday. And then finally, thinking about the industry's sphere of influence, we have a much higher degree of influence when it comes to animals which form the tourism product itself or the customer experience. But as we move to that more incidental interaction, our influence weakens. So I just want to gloss over this because I think Daniel's captured it very well, but some of the key issues we've seen over the years, we've seen issues with wildlife viewing interactions, issues with photographic opportunities for tourists, issues with interactions, riding on interactions, issues with animal performances. We've seen exploitative practices, some of which have become illegal now. We've seen animals which have been physically or surgically modified to make them safe for handling by tourists. And we've seen fundamentally inadequate and unacceptable housing conditions for animals. So a large range of issues which play into this responsibility we have. So in terms of acting on that responsibility, back in 2010, at the request of our members, ABTA created an industry working group on welfare. And when we brought that group together, one of the first things we did was put together an industry strategy designed to enable progress on these issues. And one of the first elements of that strategy was how do we raise awareness of best practice in this area. So we started a scoping exercise there to look at what's already out there, what guidance already exists, could something be used that's already out there in the marketplace, what's needed, how the supply chain currently performs, and what progress would look like. And what that process itself uncovered was that there wasn't guidance which was capable of global application, which covered the vast range of animal-related experiences encountered within the industry. So we set out to create that guidance. And just over 2 years later, what we actually ended up was 7 pieces of guidance. That was a bit of a shock to me because I thought we were creating one when we started this journey. But we wanted to be able to offer targeted information to the most common types of tourism animal interactions. So we've got the Global Welfare Guidance for Animals in Tourism, which is applicable to all instances where the two industries interact. It sets out welfare foundations and then establishes minimum requirements. And then it provides a host of good and best practice information. And then we've got targeted information for captive animal attractions, for whale and dolphin facilities, for elephant facilities, for working animal attractions, so that's your camels, your horses, your sled dogs, for wildlife viewing, which focuses on the focal species, but also the mode of access and the impacts that that can have. And the final document is a set of unacceptable and discouraged practices. So just to take you through some of the development, we wanted the development for this guidance to be as multi-stakeholder as possible to make sure that we were broadly reflecting the vast range of opinions on this. So once we drafted an initial set of guidance with the Born Free Foundation, we sent that out to over 200 stakeholders all around the world. And we asked them to feed back on that. And now, naturally, as I'm sure you can imagine, when you're targeting NGOs, charities, veterinarians, biologists, animal attractions, destination governments, what tended to come back was complete extremes of opinion. So there was very much a balancing act to try and make sure that the guidance reflected a very neutral ground, a middle ground, but it represented progress, but it was also practical and implementable, because without that, then fundamentally progress wouldn't be able to achieve. Just to touch on the welfare foundations, we thought it was really important to clarify what we interpret by animal welfare, and we turned to two practical tools which already existed. The first being the 5 freedoms developed by the Farm Animals Welfare Council, and the second being the welfare quality criteria. Now, they were also developed in the context of farmed animals, so we added 3 additional criteria, which you might not be able to make out, but numbers 13 to 15 in the column on the right. And we added those to make sure that the criteria were applicable to the vast range of animal experiences within the industry. We also wanted to clarify what a minimum acceptable benchmark of welfare performance should look like within the industry. So to do that, we set out 3 sets of minimum requirements. The first being requirements which are applicable to all instances where tourism and animals interact. There's 10 requirements there. There's then a specific subset for whale and dolphin facilities, where there's an additional 9 requirements, and then an additional 4 for facilities where they have working animals. And for businesses which have adopted the guidance, it's these minimum requirements which are the minimum benchmark of acceptable practice. With regards to the unacceptable practices, again, we subdivided these into 3 broad areas to capture what was happening across the global supply chain. The first being unacceptable practices with animals in captive attractions. So here we might, an example would be physically modifying or surgically modifying an animal to make it safe for handling. The second involves animals in cultural events and activities. So here an example would be using animals in begging. And the third was unacceptable practices involving free roaming animals in the wild. So an example here would be direct contact with and feeding of free roaming wild animals. So just finally to touch on where we've got to with the guidance. The guidance was launched in June 2013 in the European Parliament, and it has voluntary status within the ABTA membership. So that means that ABTA members, in line with their products, they choose to adopt it. We work with them to help them implement it, to help them adopt the guidance and implement a practical approach to working with their supply chains on that. We've been really pleased with the reception that this has had from within the ABTA membership, but also from further afield as well. Across businesses which have currently adopted this guidance, they're carrying in excess of 19 million customers each year, and dissemination has now taken place on a global scale, meaning the guidance is in the hands of the people it was designed to be for, to be with, which are the animal attraction providers themselves. Some of our members have also commenced auditing against the minimum requirements. That's something that's commenced since the launch. And we know now that over 6 million customer experiences each year are taking place in attractions which have been visited with the minimum requirements. And one of the things that we've seen since we launched this guidance, which is a bit harder to quantify, but it's fundamentally important, is we've had a real improved level of stakeholder dialogue on this. I think it's given a focal point for concerns about animal welfare performance to be brought, and for us to be able to take those concerns to our membership. We've had better dialogue with key suppliers, with NGOs, with charities, and it's just given us a platform to work more collaboratively to improve performance in this area. And just looking ahead to what the future holds, so very much we want to see increased uptake of this guidance and its increased implementation. We also have recognised the need through working with the Welfare Working Group to expand welfare guidance into other key parts of the sector. So we're shortly going to be releasing guidance for hoteliers and for ground handling agents as a vital part of improving performance within the industry. Naturally, we're committed to a continual review of the guidance. So in line with that, when we reach the next review period, we'll be conducting the same multi-stakeholder consultation. And then finally, but most importantly, what we'd absolutely need to see and love to see materialise is in destinations where there isn't legislative guidance on welfare and there aren't standards in place, we'd love to see destination governments use the guide to inform the shape of that policy. I think that's fundamentally important to making sure that industry progress happens. So I appreciate that's been a bit of a whirlwind tour, but it's hard to condense 3 years into 7 minutes, so apologies for that, but I hope it's giving you a little bit of insight into our version of, or our understanding of the responsibility we have and how we act upon that. Thanks very much.
Simon, I made that slightly under 7 minutes. It is, and much appreciated. Now, there won't be any mistaking where Travis is from. So, we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Travis Berkey. I'm the Vice President of Caribbean Operations for Grupo Dolphin Discovery. I would like to start, first of all, by thanking the World Travel Mart, my colleagues on the panel, Dr. Goodwin for this opportunity, and for all of you participating today. Grupo Dolphin Discovery. I'd like to share a little bit about who we are and what we do. Our mission is very simple. Share happiness as a dream of swimming with dolphins becomes the experience of a lifetime. We believe there have been 3 keys to our success: our commitment to the environment, to education, and our social responsibilities. In terms of animal welfare, the marvelous marine mammals under our care receive world-class attention and care. We have a preventative medical regimen in place at all of our destinations. The majority of our parks are in natural environments, including the 2 largest in the world, Cozumel and Isla Mujeres. These 2 parks, as well, are 527% larger than required by Mexican and/or international law. These facilities are also 3 times deeper than recommended by Mexican international law. On average, if we were to take into account all of our facilities, on average our facilities are 4 times larger than required by Mexican and international law. Each of our dolphin parks at Dolphin Discovery allows for a healthy social structure amongst the dolphins and avoids the isolation of an individual. The diet of our marine mammals is scientifically designed based on gender, age, temperament of the mammal, season, and is monitored on a daily basis by the resident vets. In a few months, we'll be celebrating our 20th anniversary. 5 of the 6 founder dolphins that we started with in 1994 or 1995 are still with us, and all of these dolphins are over 40 years of age. Our internal reproductive program, the Miracle Program, is based on many years of hard work by vets and trainers that dedicate their lives to the health and well-being of these marvelous marine mammals. However, I will let the numbers speak for themselves. At Grupo Dolphin Discovery, we have an annual mortality rate of 1.2%. We have an annual birth rate of 9%. This differential has allowed us to open up 5 miracle destinations, where all of the dolphins, manatees, and sea lions in that destination were actually born under our care. Our educational commitment. The ABCs of Animal Training, our internal trainer education program that is now available to those in the industry or those who are looking for a career in the marine mammal industry, is the first audio-visual course in the world for trainers using positive reinforcement. Our social responsibilities. In Mexico, we have been named by the government a socially responsible company for 9 years in a row, and we are active in our community through our nonprofit arm, Fundación Dolphin Discovery, and where our focus is on the children who find themselves in vulnerable situations. And we're actually this week finishing up a campaign for children with eye and heart problems. So we are touching lives in a way that may otherwise, touching lives for children who wouldn't have had the opportunity to survive, with the heart operations especially. We are accredited by the Alliance of Marine Mammal Parks and Aquariums. This is a US-based organization. The Alliance focuses on the providence of its dolphins and prohibits each and every member from being involved in the Japanese or Solomon Island dolphin hunts. In the world, there are approximately 700 dolphin parks, approximately 3,600 dolphins in human care. Of these 700 parks, 61 are accredited by the Alliance. Grupo Dolphin Discovery, where are we headed? And what are the challenges that lie ahead? Environmental concerns. Our goal is to work together with authorities to promote compliance of existing legislation. Many times we talk about developing legislation for the protection of animals, but especially in Mexico and the Caribbean, this legislation exists. And so what we want to do, or what we are doing, is working together with governmental agencies for compliance of existing legislation. A good deal of the facts that are being promoted out there come from unnamed sources and unverified science. It is our objective to have peer-reviewed research that is endorsed by universities and governmental agencies. I'd like to share a couple examples real quickly. Example one is a look at clarifying the science. Research methods being developed that will pinpoint exactly how tourist interactions affect animals. University researchers have looked at enzyme levels before and after interaction sessions to see whether these sessions cause animal stress. This investigation consists in correlating the inter-8 gene, which plays an important role in animal immunity, cortisol, which is an immunosuppressive hormone in animals with chronic stress, and increases in muscular enzymes, which is a sign of health problems in dolphins. This work is being done in conjunction with 2 universities and the National Science and Technology Board of Mexico. The research has been done. It is being presented for peer review and will be published in 2015. The science shows that interactive sessions at Grupo Dolphin Discovery are enriching for the animals and do not cause additional stress for the animals. A second example from Dr. Gregory Bossard, who is a renowned pathologist and animal vet. Over the course of a 14-year study, he has shown that dolphins in human care are actually healthier than many of the populations in the wild. He has found in his research that many of the populations in the wild have 20 times the level of mercury that is accepted as a normal level, and they also suffer from many immunosuppressive diseases due to environmental conditions. Our social challenges: that those who offer and recommend dolphin parks to their guests become catalysts for change in operators, demanding sustainable practices and official certifications. Now, I want to be very careful, make sure that I'm speaking for Grupo Dolphin Discovery and what we believe in. I cannot speak to many of the situations that Daniel and Simon speak about because I'm not privy to the circumstances that these species are found in. It is my personal belief that we are guardians for these marvelous marine mammals and have the responsibility to take care not only of the mammals in our care, but of those in the wild. Each and every day, the general public is more educated, and this is a good thing. This only increases the pressure on suppliers and clients to differentiate the good from the bad. There are many options out there, and the only viable control is the almighty pound, where the tourists are spending their money. Guests need to be guided to those suppliers that do things the right way, that take care of their animals and who abide by oversight from organizations such as Virgin, such as APTA, such as AZA, the Alliance of Marine Mammal Parks and Aquariums. And tourism is taking responsibility. This isn't a new issue. It is being done on a daily basis by tour operators. They're making their comments known through guest comment cards, surveys, and their disposable income. Each guest that participates in one of our programs contributes to research into conservation. I would like to finish up by leaving you with a few numbers. As I talked about before, there are approximately 3,600 dolphins in human care around the world. 600 of these dolphins are housed in Alliance facilities. On an annual basis, 35 to 50,000 dolphins are killed in dolphin hunts. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, annually 650,000 marine mammals are killed as a result of commercial bycatch. Half of these animals are dolphins and porpoises, and the other half are pinnipeds. This means that every 2 days, more dolphins are killed as a result of the dolphin hunts and as commercial bycatch than are housed in all the dolphin parks in the world. And this doesn't even take into account the environmental factors that kill so many more. So I agree, and we will fight together with those who want to improve the standards of dolphins around the world in human care. I'm with you. I'm thrilled to work with you on that one. But we have to take steps. Our focus also needs to be on the wild populations, because it's not outside the realm of possibilities that if we don't change this, if we're not able to change this tendency of these animals dying in the wild, very soon we may not have wild populations to look at. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much, Travis. The final speaker on this panel, indeed the final speaker today, is Miriam Hill of Virgin Holidays. So Miriam.
Behind you. This one here. All right. Final speaker of the day. Right. Well, thanks very much, everybody, for sticking around. So, following on from the three panellists before me, I'm going to give you a bit of background and insight into Virgin Holidays as a tour operator and as a member of ABTA, how we have been addressing animal welfare and how much responsibility we feel tourism should be taking. So Virgin Holidays, we're a package tour operator. We sell holidays to UK customers. Our key destinations are Florida, the rest of the US, the Caribbean, but we offer holidays pretty much anywhere in the world, and that's anything from small group touring all the way through to cruises. It's significant to say in terms of supply chain that we don't own or operate any of the entities. We package the holidays and then sell them on with added value Virgin touches. So I think before we start to look at the question of how much responsibility should tourism take for animal welfare, I wanted to take a step back and just try and get an idea of the size and scale of the industry that we're talking about. And I'm looking at excursions and activities. So research that was conducted in conjunction with Viator, which is an online seller of excursions and activities and destinations. In 2011, they valued the US attractions, activities and excursions market at around $30 billion. They then conducted a similar piece of research this year, and they value the European market at $51 billion. So as you can see from there, 3 times the size of the region's car rental market, totals half the size of the hotel market. So it's huge, and it's safe to say that when our customers reach a destination, there's a lot of choice there for things that they can do. The next question that I pose is, and how many of these attractions, activities, tours, things that people can do once they reach a destination includes interaction with or viewing of animals? It's a big question mark. As Simon alluded to, there are lots of ways in which a customer or holidaymaker may encounter or have an opportunity to interact with an animal whilst on their holiday. Now, as a tour operator, there's attractions and activities that we promote and sell directly, pre-departure or when they arrive into their destination. Then once they're there, there's attractions and activities that may be promoted or sold via the hotel they're staying at, so our hotel partners, or cruise partners via shore excursions. And then there's attractions, activities that may be promoted and sold by other vendors that are not associated with Virgin Holidays. And then further down to that still, in the destination, there may be other opportunities that are not part of a formalised activity or attraction, like, for example, the photographic prop opportunities that Simon and Daniel highlighted. And then again, activities and destinations that the tourists may witness or see when they're on holiday, but are outside the sphere of the industry, so to speak, such as witnessing levels of abuse or neglect amongst working animals in that destination. And Simon's already covered this, but as a tour operator specifically, it's important to look at where we have control and where we have influence. Now, obviously, whatever we sell to our customers or choose to promote, we have direct control over that. But as we move down that scale to the destination level and activities that are not within our supply chain, we're moving into an area where we may have influence, but we certainly cannot control that. So if we look at why is it important that the industry, and as a tour operator specifically, takes responsibility for animal welfare? Well, we know that the opportunity to view and interact with animals is a popular part of the holiday experience. Simon gave a statistic to allude to that. But with that, we also understand and recognise that there's a potential impact on the customer experience if that experience does not live up to what they feel or what they want it to be. When people travel, they take the same set of values than they have at home with them, and they expect to see things that meet those values. There's a potential relevance to health and safety. If you're dealing with animals of whatever size, you have to take into account as a tour operator that there's potential impacts with health and safety. There's an impact on the destination image. We understand from research that was conducted by Sparna that 52% of British adults said that they would be put off from visiting a country again if they saw an animal being mistreated. So that's very significant in terms of people's perceptions of a destination, what they witness there in terms of animal welfare standards. And of course, there's the impact or potential impact on the tour operator themselves. The rise of social media is significant in this. At the ABTA convention this year, Google's head of travel, Nigel Huddleston, said from their research, they believe that 86% of smartphone owners will share photos whilst they're on holiday. And this is a little bit depressing, that 3/4 of people will use sites such as Facebook and Twitter every day when they're on holiday. So, people are connected and they're taking images and they're sharing photographs. So as a tour operator, of course, it's important that we recognise that we need to understand where our risks are and what the issues are in terms of animal welfare and what our customers may potentially encounter whilst on holiday with us. But it's not all doom and gloom. When we're looking at animal attractions and the opportunity to view and interact with animals, there's an opportunity as well. It's a hugely valuable experience for customers if done in the right and responsible way. And we know that our customers enjoy it. Our own customer research on a very specific type of tourism interaction with animals indicate that 85% of our customers had high levels of enjoyment, and 88% of customers that are not from Virgin Holidays had high levels of enjoyment as well of that particular experience. As Travis alluded to as well, and he can give more insight from his particular industry, there are educational and conservation values towards many of the attractions, and the opportunity to learn and understand the species that you might be able to view or interact with. So there's pros and cons, of course, and of course we must take responsibility for our supply chains and for what our customers do and view when they're on holiday. So what have we done so far? Well, we've been proactively addressing this issue since 2003. We've worked very closely with ABTA in the development of the codes that Simon has spoken about. And, of course, in terms of implementation of those minimum requirements, strategically and logically, we have to start where we have our direct control, which is what we promote and sell to our customers. So in terms of implementation, what have we done? Well, we have included this and integrated this into our supplier code of conduct. New suppliers go through a self-assessment process based on those ABTA minimum requirements, on-site assessments in line with those minimum requirements, ground handler agent training in line with the guidance and the minimum requirements, and customer communications. It's important in this to never forget the customer. And whilst we, of course, want to encourage our customers and be able to provide our customers with once-in-a-lifetime experiences, such as being able to interact with the iconic Asian elephant, we of course need to be communicating and signposting the way in which they can do that most responsibly. And we've done that through communications in our brochures pre-departure and our pre-departure information, where we highlight our preferred suppliers and in fact the only suppliers that we will directly sell tickets to for interaction with elephants in Thailand. And then more recently, moving beyond the ABTA minimum requirements and the global guidance on animal welfare, there was the announcement from Sir Richard Branson in terms of where attractions will no longer be able to work with us if they cannot pledge to never again take cetaceans from the sea. So he announced this back in February of this year, and following on from that, we initiated a multi-stakeholder engagement process to begin to unpick some of these issues. Now, we understand that it was not as simplistic as that initial announcement, and that there might be occasions and circumstances by which an animal would need to be housed for the remainder of its life, or what about the eventuality of rehabilitation. What would happen in the event that it became necessary to create a breeding programme for further reintroduction back into the wild for conservation purposes. So we knew there were nuances that we needed to understand. But nonetheless, we embarked on the multi-stakeholder process, which started with a 2-day meeting with a broad spectrum of stakeholders, everything from organisations such as Daniel's all the way through to supplier attractions themselves, to try to understand some of these issues. And one of the outputs of this, and the first stage of this, was the Virgin Pledge. So the Virgin Pledge essentially outlines, and it's very hard to read from there, but it's available online. It essentially outlines the commitment from the supplier attraction in terms of no longer taking cetaceans from the wild, with built-in caveats around rehabilitation, rescue and support for endangered species. So to date, we've had more than 30 signatory facilities who their CEOs have signed that, and that list is available publicly as well. And it's important to note that the signatories include some facilities that are actually outside of the Virgin Holidays supply chain, so we don't have any direct relationship with them. And what's the significance of that, you ask? Well, in terms of the pledge is about provenance of animals. It's about provenance of cetacea. Where do they come from? As Travis has said, a number of the attractions already have very successful breeding programs. So it is no longer necessary to continue taking cetacea from the wild for the purposes of tourism or attractions. We don't believe so. And certainly in terms of the dry fisheries, this is the first step of ensuring that we're not working with attractions or suppliers that are not within the AMPA certification body, because they're not taking them from the wild anymore. But this is the first step. The Virgin Pledge was a line in the sand. It was a note to suppliers to join us on this journey. But as Travis highlighted, the global challenges that we face in terms of ocean conservation are far greater than just looking at captive cetacea. And we must work together collectively to address this. And our ambition is to work with all interested parties, including signatories to the Virgin Pledge, to find ways that we can create meaningful and engaging opportunities and experiences for our customers that contribute to the education and the overarching goal of ocean conservation. So this is just a step through of the journey on the stakeholder process, going from the original announcement, a stakeholder engagement meeting in Miami. We then spent the summer touring various facilities, continuing to engage with the different stakeholders in the conversation to get further learnings, meetings with various supplier partners, and then here we are at the future vision, where we will continue to work proactively with all the stakeholders already involved and any other interested parties to create our future vision. So, where to next? Well, of course, we want to continue the positive dialogue that we initiated through the Miami meeting. We also welcome and encourage the rest of the industry to adopt the pledge. It's a significant move forward, and it does mean that we are making a stance as an industry against practices such as the dry fisheries. We want to continue to work with partners and other interested parties and stakeholders to create enriching and enjoyable experiences that transform the way that customers engage with and learn about the oceans. We will continue to support ABTA with the review of the guidelines, and we'll of course continue to implement the guidelines on a global basis throughout our supply chain. Did I come in under 7?
Thanks very much indeed, Miriam. We're going to leave that... yes, you were slightly naughty. 12 minutes. I won't hold it against you. We're going to leave that slide up because it's very beautiful. First question.